Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
Okay, so we'll share.
Shalom Aleichem. It's a very great honor to have you. Thank you, Rabbi Frisch. Welcome. Welcome to everybody. So you, my understanding is you all graduated and you're headed off to the Holy Land for a year, Be'ez Hashem of Aliyah. So you should all have a lot of Hatzlacha. Amen. And I want to share with you an idea that is very powerful to me personally. It comes from Rabbeinu Yonah. Rabbeinu Yonah is one of the great Rishonim. Rabbeinu Yonah was related to the Ramban. He was a relative of the Ramban. Rabbeinu Yonah lived in Spain. He wrote a sefer, Shari Tshuva. Shari Tshuva is a work of Musar, but it's also a work of Halacha. Some say the historical background of Shari Tshuva is that many of the Rishonim had issues with the Rambam, with things that he wrote in Mar Nevuchim and what he wrote in Yad HaChazaka, and because of that, the words of the Rambam were examined by the Christian church and they were burned. And when they were burnt, they were actually burnt in the same spot that the Gemaras were burnt. And that was taken as a message from those who criticized the Rambam that they didn't act properly toward the Rambam. The ashes of the works of the Rambam mixed with the ashes of the Shas. And the Rabbeinu Yonah specifically took that to heart. And some say he wrote Shari Tshuva as like a personal tshuva for having been involved in this. But the Shari Tshuva is a very important work. It's one of the basic works of Musar. You know, I always say, if you're going to spend a couple of years in yeshiva, there's certain books that you have to make sure that you expose yourself to. Mesilas Yesharim, Chayvas Habavais. Shari Tshuva is one of them. At some point in time, whether it's today, tomorrow, in a few years, you want to make sure you get a good look at Sefer Shari Tshuva. I want to begin with the following preface. Does anyone know how many mitzvahs aseh are there in the Torah? 248, very good. Many of them don't apply anymore. Many of them we fulfill every day. There are actually a limited amount of mitzvahs aseh that we actually fulfill every day. You have, let's say, tzitzis, you have tefillin, you have kriyas shema, you have birchas haTorah, you have, according to the Rambam, davening at least once a day is a d'oraisa. And you have mitzvahs that you could do in your heart. But there's a category of mitzvahs that Rabbeinu Yonah describes as it almost is, it transcends specific mitzvahs. It's even greater than maybe tzitzis or tefillin. These are avenues of avodas Hashem that are like the highest realms, the highest areas of serving Hashem. And Rabbeinu Yonah calls it malois ha'elyonos, like the supreme levels, the supreme attributes. Now, if I were making the list, what would you think, what is the most important mitzvahs aseh in the Torah? I mean, are we even allowed to say such a thing? Because in Pirkei Avos it says, don't be careful in a small mitzvah like a great mitzvah, because we don't really know the reward for mitzvahs. But even so, we do know a little bit some of the reward for mitzvahs. What would you say is the most important mitzvah in the Torah? Talmud Torah. Exactly. I mean, we say it every morning in the Mishnah and Peah. We say, Talmud Torah keneged kulam. There's no question. Talmud Torah is the most important mitzvah in the Torah, qualitatively. By the way, what is the mitzvah of Talmud Torah? In other words, how much do you have to learn to get a mitzvah? Even one word. It's the Elu Dvarim she'en lahem Shiur, which means there's no maximum. There's no point in time where you say, okay, I learned already. Suddenly you tell a kid, did you learn yet today? Yeah, I opened up a book and I learned for how long? For 1 minute. Okay, that's learning. But on the other hand, you can never say, okay, I fulfilled my quota. There's no minimum shiur and there's no maximum shiur. Each word by itself is a separate mitzvah. It says approximately 32 times in the Chumash the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, which means that for every word that you learn, you get 32 different mitzvahs. Talmud Torah is for sure number one. Is there a number two? Is there a number two? It doesn't really say in any official source mitzvah number two, but there are many, many Gemaras and Shas that always group together Talmud Torah with the following mitzvah. And I'll give you a little clue. There's a Gemara in Shabbos. The Gemara in Shabbos says, children came into the Beis Medrash, that they said chidushim, that even from the times of Yehoshua ben Nun, nobody ever says such a great chidush. They said, Aleph Beis Gimel Daled. And they expounded upon it. Aleph Beis stands for Aleph Bina, learn Torah. Gimel Daled stands for Gimel Dalim, do chesed. That's their drasha that these kids gave. And then they said, Hey Vav is the name of Hashem. If you learn Torah and you do chesed, the name of Hashem will rest upon you. Zayin Ches, Hashem will zan oischa, he'll feed you. Chan oischa, he'll be gracious to you. Writes the Chafetz Chaim, what were these kids teaching? You know, the kids came into the Beis Medrash and they said this big chiddush. Aleph Beis Gimel Daled, Aleph Beis, Aleph Bina, learn Torah, Gimel Daled, Gimel Dalim, do chesed. Says the Chafetz Chaim, if these two mitzvahs are alluded to in the beginning of the Aleph Beis, that means the Aleph Beis of Judaism, the meat and potatoes of Judaism, the two most important mitzvahs in the Torah are Aleph Bina, learn Torah, Gimel Daled, to do chesed. Those are the two fatherheads of all the mitzvahs. It's important to know that. That means in life in general, a person's main focus should be Aleph Beis, learning Torah, Gimel Daled, Gimel Dalim, doing chesed. Fine. So Rabbeinu Yonah composes a list of what he calls Malois Ha'elyonos, areas of Avodas Hashem that are like the main areas of Avodas Hashem. Meaning, tzitzis is not going to be on the list, even though it's very important to wear tzitzis. Every minute you wear tzitzis, you're mekayim a mitzvah da'iraisa. And therefore a person should try to be careful during the daytime, for sure, to always be wearing tzitzis. Because, you know, it's a good business deal. For not a lot of effort, you get a free mitzvah whenever you're wearing tzitzis. But tzitzis is not on the list. Even tefillin is not on the list, even though tefillin is very, very important. A person can't let a day of their life go by without wearing tefillin. Shabbos even is not on the list. So let me give you examples of some mitzvahs that are on the list. You can take a look yourself. This is in the Shari Tshuva. It's in the third Shar. It's in Ois Yud Zayin. The Rabbeinu Yonah says an example of Mailos Ha'elyonos. Here, I'm going to read to you from the beginning. Veda ki hamalos ha'elyonos nimsru b'mitzvahs aseh. The greatest attributes are given to Klal Yisrael for a mitzvah aseh, but I'm going to skip the first couple. For example, Rabbeinu Yonah says, most of the way down this paragraph, Malos Hayira, the great attribute of fear of Hashem. Malos Ha'ava, the great attribute of love of Hashem. You know, it's a mitzvah to love Hashem. In fact, you know, there's an interesting question. If the Torah says to do something, and it doesn't say how often you're supposed to do it. Let's say the Rambam says, you know the Shita of the Rambam? The Rambam's opinion is, Tefillah is minimum midairaisa once a day. Midrabanan we daven 3 times a day. Midairaisa it's once a day. Where did the Rambam get once a day from? Maybe once a week, maybe once a month, maybe once an hour. Like, where did he get once a day? Or let's say tefillin. How often do we wear tefillin? Once a day. Why? Who made that up? Why once a day? Why not every hour, every month, every week? The Kesef Mishnah says, if the Torah says to do something and it doesn't say when, the logic is it means once a day. So we wear tefillin once a day. Midaraisa you have to daven once a day. What about Avas Hashem? Therefore the Chafetz Chaim writes, at least once a day you need to be mekayim the mitzvah of loving Hashem. So you know when you fulfill that mitzvah? When you say, you have a question?
Yeah, sorry. Where does the Kesef Mishnah get that?
He feels it's just a compelling logic. Meaning the basic unit of life are days. That's how Hashem created us. So if Hashem says to do something, you could safely presume he means once a day. He doesn't bring a source. He just says it's reasonable, yeah.
If we're saying for tefillin, like it's once a day, then how do we know it's shachar, it's not mincha live?
It's not. Midaraisa, it could be mincha.
So I could just wear tefillin live?
Yeah, the only thing is the rabbis came along and they said you got to do it 3 times a day. And then the Jewish people accepted upon themselves to do it. So midrabanan, you got to do it 3 times a day.
So that's davening in general. I'm saying like tefillin, you don't put 3 times a day.
Oh, why shachris?
Yeah.
So that's a good question. Like, who decided we should wear tefillin shachris? The Meshech Chachma says a reason why we do it in the morning. Avram Avinu was Masakin Shachris, and in Avram's merit we have tefillin, so we group the two together. But it's true, if somebody was sick and they didn't put on tefillin shachris, they would have to put it on sometime during the day. Okay, so let's say loving Hashem, you need to make sure at least once a day you could check off, okay, I expressed my love for Hashem. You ever hear of Rabbi Victor Miller? So when I was your age, when dinosaurs roamed the earth, I grew up in a country called Brooklyn, and about 45 minutes away from Rav Miller's shul. And I used to walk, I'm about your age, to Rav Miller's shul, like 50 minutes on Shabbos. And Rav Miller used to say, once a day, every Jew needs to say, I love you, Hashem. Now the thing is, we say, Ve'ahavta Hashem lekecha. But you have to sort of be, you have to be up, you have to be alive when you're saying those words. You have to be up, you have to be focused that you're expressing your love of Hashem. Okay, so now you get a picture for what this list is. Other Mailos Ho'elyonos are, Rabbeinu Yonah talks about contemplating the chesed that Hashem has done for you. Okay, this is a very beautiful list of the highest avenues of the service of Hashem. So now, if you or I were writing this list, and I think we have a right to assume there's some kind of logic to the order of the list over here. I mean, Rabbeinu Yonah was a Rishon. If a Rishon writes something, we're entitled to ask about each and every word, about the order of it. If I were writing the list, or you were writing the list, which mitzvah would you put number 1? Talmud Torah. Which mitzvah would you put number 2? Chesed. It's amazing. He almost did that. Mitzvah number 2, Malas Talmud Torah, Shenemar v'dibarta bam. Mitzvah number 3, Malois leches b'darchei Hashem, the attribute of walking in the ways of Hashem, which is Chesed. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, v'halachta b'drachav, you should walk in His ways. So now, the $1 million question is, what is mitzvah number 1 on Rabbeinu Yonah's list? So what does he say? Malois habechira, the attribute of free choice. Shenemar ubacharta b'chayim, you should choose life. Mitzvah number 1, the most important mitzvah in the Torah, is the mitzvah bechira. So I'm going to share with you now a question I've had for 20 years. There is no mitzvah bechira. Bechira is not a mitzvah. What's the mitzvah bechira? That's one of the 613 mitzvahs? Bechira is a concept. The concept is that even though when you're in bed in the morning and you think you just can't get up, it's not true. You actually have free choice. And even if it's very hard, it is up to you to decide whether to make the right choice or the wrong choice. I remember I was giving a shiur about 15 years ago to seniors, yeah? And I was talking about free choice, and the guy says, what do you mean free choice? Hashem controls everything. He makes you do mitzvahs, or He makes you do averos. I said, pal, you seem like you're a good Jew, you're a nice Jew. The only thing is, that's Christianity. In Judaism, we believe that God controls everything except for our actions. You choose whether to do a mitzvah or to do an avera. God takes a step back and He says, it is up to you whether you're going to get up, what time you're going to get up, how well you're going to learn, whether you look or you don't look, whether you say it or you don't say it. Nobody is compelling you, and not in any direction. It is totally up to you. That is the concept of bechira. But there's no mitzvah of bechira. What's the mitzvah of bechira? Oh, you have another question? You understand what's bothering me? There is no mitzvah bechira. Let's say, there's a concept, hashgacha pratis, that Hashem controls every detail of life. That's not a mitzvah, that's a concept. There's no mitzvah of hashgacha pratis. What in the world does Rabbeinu Yonah mean? The maila of bechira. Okay? I was bothered by this for many, many years. You can even look in commentaries of Rabbeinu Yonah, and many ask this question, and they give different answers, and none of them satisfied me. And I want to share with you what I think is the definitive answer to this question. And if it sounds a little bit overconfident, the only reason why I'm so confident that this is the definitive answer to this question, because I found in another sefer of Rabbeinu Yonah that he explains what bechira is, and it's extremely empowering and eye-opening. But let me segue by discussing something else also. You know, in the Parsha Kisisa, when it talks about the construction of the Mishkan, it says that, you know, there are a lot of very difficult jobs to do. You had to have a guy who came along and he carved out kruvim, saying if you're working in Egypt for like 210 years and the only thing you know how to do is take big stones and mix cement, you're not going to know how to carve out, you know, complex kruvim. That's artistry. That's craftsmanship. You probably would have to go to school for many, many years in order to learn how to do that. Or if you're going to want to weave tapestries, you need to be trained. You can't go to your, you know, cleaning lady and say, you know, I think I want you to weave for me beautiful curtains. She may not have the training to be able to do that. So, how exactly did Klal Yisrael make the Mishkan? They were a slave. They're building pyramids for 210 years. All of a sudden, Hashem tells Moshe, go tell them to make a menorah. How in the world are they going to make a menorah? To take one piece of gold and to chisel it out, you need like Michelangelo and to train you for a decade. And these Jews who were slaves for many generations, they're going to go and build a menorah. So the pasuk says, Vayavoyu kolish asher nisa'oi libai. Every man whose heart carried him came forward. So the Ramban wants to know, what does it mean his heart carried him? What does that mean? What does it mean for your heart to carry you? So Ramban says, sometimes if you have such a desire and ambition and ratzain and real cheshek to do something, you could find inside of your heart and your soul ability that you never even realized that you had. In modern Hebrew, there's a word called yazama. Yazama. You ever hear the word yazama? Yazama means ambition. Someone who has ambition will sometimes find that he never was trained to do something. He never knew he could do it. But he so badly wants to accomplish something, he's able to summon the ability that he didn't even know he had. So I'm going to ask you a very interesting question. You know, in Jewish history, there are different tekufos, different eras of Jewish history. You have Nevi'im, you have Tanoim, you have Amoraim, you have Ga'onim, you have Rishonim, you have Achronim. Generally, we say Rishonim, the Rashba, the Ran, the Ramban, the Rif, the Ritva, are they greater than Achronim or less than Achronim? You know, let's say Achronim are the period of Rabbi Kiva Eger, the Vilna Gaon, the Chassam Sofer, the Marsha. Who's greater? The period known as the Achronim or the period known as Rishonim? Usually say the earlier the generation, the greater they were. The Rishonim were greater than the Achronim. The Ga'onim are greater than the Rishonim. So if I were to ask, right, the Tanoim of the Mishnah were greater than the Amoram. What would you say is the defining characteristic between the earlier generations and later generations? In other words, what was it about the earlier generations that made them greater than the later generations? Yeah. They're closer to the Beis HaMikdash. They're closer to what? They're closer to the giving of the Torah, right? They're closer to Sinai. Okay, and in what way were they greater? They knew more. The Masar was clear. What about their capabilities? Were they smarter? Maybe they were smarter. Did they have? Okay, so I would have said, I don't know. They had more emunah maybe, or they were closer to Sinai. They had more emes. Rabbi Rucham Levavit says the main difference between the earlier generations and the later generations is that the earlier generations had more yazama, they had more ambition. Rabbi Rucham says in any realm in this world, whether in the spiritual world, it could be the business world, it could be the world of academia, in any area in life, who are the people that are the most successful? It's not always the smartest. It's not always the most talented. It's not always this characteristic. It's not always that characteristic. In most situations, the key ingredient to success is yazama, ambition, the desire, the drive to try to achieve and to accomplish. That is the hallmark characteristic that the point, the nakuda, the point that we can identify is the main difference between the earlier generations and the later generations. In the time of the construction of the Mishkan, Moshe Rabbeinu made a big announcement. He said, who wants to build a Mishkan? And he had people there. They were down and out. They were beaten. They had a slave mentality. But a few people, they said, I so badly want to accomplish and build this house for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They said, I'm going to make the menorah. I'm going to make the aron. How do you know how to do it? The pasuk says, "Vayavayu kol ish asher nisa'oi libay." Someone whose heart carried him. He was just inspired to do something. He found deep in his heart he was able to do it. Even though, how was he able to do it? In the Sefer Sharei HaAvodah, the Sefer Sharei HaAvodah is another Sefer written by Rabbeinu Yoina. In Ois Mem Tes, Rabbeinu Yoina writes in the Sharei HaAvodah really, really amazing words. He says that every Jew should always think. Take a look in Ois Mem Tes, on page Nun Hey, okay? Or act Nun, what is that? Nun Hey, yeah. Achar habir hazeh, hachayi tena libay. Every living person should think. Yasim kol megamasai lavoid es borei tamid. He should put all of his efforts to serve Hashem always. B'chol levavai, u'b'chol nafshe, with all your heart and all your soul. Says Rabbeinu Yoina, what should you shoot for? Kedei lahasig mala kemalas hagdolim asher ba'aretz. To achieve the levels of the greatest people who ever lived. Who are they? Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, David, Ushlam. In other words, when you wake up in the morning, who should you think, who do I want to be like today? I want to be like the Avos. I want to be like Moshe. I want to be like David. So you say, come on, that doesn't sound reasonable. I can never reach their level. Says Rabbeinu Yoina, yeah, you can. They just did as much as they were able to do. So you could also do as much as you are able to do. So you say, come on, you're telling me I should strive to be like the Avos HaKadoshim? Says Rabbeinu Yoina, now I'll paraphrase. Any wise person knows that if you want to be wealthy, if you want honor, you got to give it your all. Even though wealth and honor are empty, what is it going to do for you? You can't take money with you anywhere. Not to the next world. You go to another country, they say on the border, okay, you have cash on you? Yeah. How much do you have? I have 11,000. No, you can't bring it in. You can't even take it to another place. So money is very temporary. Even in this world, you can't even bring it to many places. But nevertheless, people who want money, people who want honor, they give it all they got. So says Rabbeinu Yoina, so too, to reach the levels of Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, David, and Shlomo is the greatest accomplishment you could achieve. And you could actually reach it. So now listen to this. Therefore, I'm like 12 lines down from where the beginning of Mem Tes. You should try with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your resources. Do not weaken even for a moment. Never remove the focus from your heart. Now, you ready for this? Every day, strengthen yourself. To be strong, and to rise up, from one level to the next. Okay, now you ready? Fasten your seatbelts. I want you to see this inside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 lines from the bottom. You ready? V'yachmoid. Anybody know what the word yachmoid means? What? Yachmoid. You should desire. You should desire. V'yichsoif. What does yichsoif mean? You should yearn. Lahasig ba'avoida, to achieve ma she'ein yadai maseges, what you're not able to achieve. In other words, when you wake up in the morning, let's say like this. Let's say right now, if I open up a Gemara, I can't even learn one Tosfos on myself. I'm sure you guys can, but let's say there was a guy. He can't even make his way through one Tosfos. he should wake up in the morning and say, I want to know the entire Shas with every Tosfos and Marsha. Say that's ridiculous. Why should you desire to do something that you can't do? This is what Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi says. You should desire in Avodas Hashem what you're not able to. V'ya'asher ha'anoshim ha'masigin, strengthen the people that are achieving. V'yivchar b'darkam, choose their path. Uv'ma'alosam, and their attributes. V'yischaber eleim, associate with them. V'yilmoid mima'aseyam. And then I'm skipping a line. V'chein yaseh b'chol midu midah, you should do this for every attribute. Yachmoid oisa, desire it. So if I see a big Talmid Chacham, he knows the whole Shas with the Rush and the Rif and the Ran. Now I want to know that. I want to be like that. If you see someone with great Yirah Shamayim, you should say, I want to be like him. You see somebody davening like a big tzad, you should say, I want to be like them. I'm coming in a second. V'yis'aveh eleho. What does yis'aveh mean? You should have desire, taiva. You should want it. V'yivchar ba. V'yivchar ba. You should choose it. Lahasiga, to attain it. So Rabbi Yehuda is identifying Bechira means not to exercise free choice. It means to want a certain goal and to be like a certain tzaddik or Baal Midos or Yar Shamayim. I should choose it, mikol kesef v'zahav shaba'olam. I want it more than money. So you say, okay, but is that really the mitzvah of Bechira? Turn over, next page. Ke'inyan shenemar hanechamadim izavu mipazrav. I desire it more than gold. You ready? And if I want it, even if I never choose it, page Nun Vav, Al ha-bechira bilvad yikabel sachar. For wanting it alone, I'll be rewarded. In other words, here I am. I'm a teen. Maybe I know a few blad in the Gemara. I know a little bit of Chumash. But I'm going to Israel. And I want to become a Talmid Chacham. I want to be knowledgeable in Torah. I want the Torah to be very meaningful to me. I want to be thinking about it during the day. I want it to change me. Right now I'm just a regular kid. But I know what I want. Just for wanting it, you'll be rewarded. How much? Ki'ilu hisig, as if you're there. Now you'll say, okay, which mitzvah is that? You ready? Drum roll. Ki ha-bechira mitzvah sasei. Bechira is a positive commandment. Shenemar ubacharta b'chayim. Like it says, you should choose life. So, going back to the Sharei Tshuva. Sharei Tshuva says, mitzvah number 2, Talmud Torah. It's a very important mitzvah. It's the greatest mitzvah of all. Mitzvah number 3, Chesed. And what's mitzvah number 1? In other words, I always tell people, somebody says, I want to learn. Okay, great. The first thing is, you got to open up your Gemara. If you don't open up the Gemara, you can't learn. And then you have to actually learn. But there's something even before that. Even before actually learning, as important as learning is, and even before doing chesed, even though those are the 2 fatherheads of mitzvahs, the number 1 mitzvah in the Torah, according to Rabbeinu Yoina. Now you won't see this in other sources, but Rabbeinu Yoina feels mitzvah number 1, before even you go to Israel. Before even you open up that Gemara on day 1, you know what mitzvah number 1 is? The mitzvah of Bechira. And the mitzvah of Bechira is, what do you want to become in this world? And the answer is, I would like to be like Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, David, Shlomo. I want to be like Rashi, like the Rambam, like the Vilna Gaon, like the Chassam Sofer. But what if I never get there? It is not relevant if you get there or not. If you want it, you are rewarded as if you got there. And then Rabbeinu Yoina says something incredible. He ends off, any level that you really want in life, Hashem's going to help you get there. Rabbeinu Yoina says, an amazing Gemara. The Gemara says, if you think to do a mitzvah and circumstances don't allow you to do the mitzvah, you'll be rewarded as if you did the mitzvah. It's a famous Gemara. Misha Allah b'yadai, Misha Allah b'libay lasais mitzvah, v'nenas mala olav ki'ilu asa. It's considered like you did it. But then Rabbeinu Yoina says, if you really want it, and you choose it, and you have ambition for it, Look at these words. I will end with this. Oid yatsa lanu mi mitzvahs habechira. What emerges from the mitzvah bechira is ki mitoch sheyivchar b'midah hi, by choosing this midah, by choosing this path, yishtadol tamid la'asig, you're going to always try to achieve it, and Hashem is going to help you achieve beyond your capabilities. Meaning like this. Let's say you think right now, come on, I'm going to go to Israel, maybe for a year, maybe I'll learn like 10 blot, and that's like my max, I'll max out at that. And let's say you go to your Rebbe, and your Rebbe says, you're right, that's probably all you could do. It's not true. That's all you could do if that's all you want to do. But if you want to become a great Talmid Chacham, you could do it. But what do you mean? I don't have the capability. That's right. Right now you don't have the capability. But if you want it, Hashem will give you added capability. So that means the person's potential is limited only by how much they want. So I think that's, you're welcome to have these sheets. Really, the best thing, look over these words. Review them. It's, to me, very powerful, very compelling. And wherever you are in life, it's very empowering to think that really a person's ability in this world is infinite. There's no cap. There's no limit to how much a person could achieve and accomplish. If you have bechira, if you choose it, then Hashem will help you achieve above and beyond. Yeah.
Does this scar come with just wanting it, or wanting and trying harder? Does it count if you want it but don't try enough?
Wanting is better than not wanting, but usually when you really want something, you do your utmost to get it. So the amount of effort that you put in is often a good barometer of how much you really want it. So, the story goes, somebody came to Reb Chaim Kanievsky. He said, Rebbe, could I have a bracha? I want to be a Talmid Chacham. So Reb Chaim Kanievsky said, I can't give you a bracha to become a Talmid Chacham. If you want to become a Talmid Chacham, you got to learn. You have to learn. So Reb Chaim the boy said, I don't want to learn. So Reb Chaim Kanievsky said, you would have to want to learn, So the boy says, could you give me a bracha to want to learn? So Reb Chaim said, I can't give you a bracha to want to learn. That's your free choice. Only you could bring out and try to access a desire to learn. So the boy says, you know what? I don't have that. Could I have a bracha to want to learn? So Reb Chaim said, that I could give you a bracha for. So Reb Chaim gave a bracha that he should want to learn. So, but it's a very powerful concept, and how often do we feel, we get down on ourselves and we say that our abilities are limited, but really our abilities are endless. So that's my presentation for today. You want to do a little Q&A or different time? Probably Rabbi Leibowitz already answered all the questions.
I guess Rabbi Yehuda made the point that trying to be like greatness and follow greatness is a really powerful thing that you could do.
Yeah.
But I guess it seems like there's a fine line between oh, this guy's incredible, I really want to be like him, versus almost being jealous of him. And the Aseres Adibros actually use the same word, lo tachmod, that.
Yeah. So, look, on the one hand, you're pointing out something very important. If you see somebody, look, in the physical world, if you see somebody who drives a nicer car and you say, oh, I wish I had that car, that's actually a negative prohibition. That's chemda. But even in the spiritual world, it is a little bit tricky, because sometimes you see somebody, they have much greater natural ability than maybe, Ruvain maybe has much greater natural ability than Shimon. And Shimon looks at Ruvain, and Shimon says, I wish I was as smart as Ruvain. I wish I had the natural understanding and clarity of Ruvain. I'm really upset at him. If he wasn't in this world, I would have it. So that's more like jealousy. So that's in a way debilitating, because that hurts a person. So this is, so to speak, aspiring. And on the other hand, there is a certain danger to this. Because, if a person spends their whole life, they wish they want to be like Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, or they want to be like Rav Moshe Feinstein. And in reality, it takes a lifetime, if not more, to reach that, it could be depressing, you know, like, when am I going to get there? When is all this bechira going to start kicking in? So, something important that I heard from our Rosh Yeshiva, I learned in Yeshiva Chavetz Chaim, I was zocheh to hear a shiur from Rav Henoch Leibowitz. He would say over from the Vilna Gaon that in the physical world, if you want more, you can't be happy with what you have. And if you're happy with what you have, you can't want more. In other words, it's a dichotomy. You can't be happy with what you have and want more. If you want more money, you're not going to be happy with the money you have. So therefore Chazal say, be sameach b'chalka, be happy with what you have, don't desire more. In the spiritual world, you could simultaneously rejoice in the level of ruchnius that you achieve, and at the same time you could desire more. So in other words, let's say a person, you know, says, wow, I could finally read a Rashi Hamayon, I could finally read a Tosfos Hamayon. Appreciate that, rejoice with that, be happy that you're able to do that. And at the same time, you could still wish, you know, I wish I was on a much higher level of learning also. Yeah, that those two feelings could coexist at the same time. Yeah.
How can a person achieve Avas HaTorah and Simchas HaTorah, which will lead to greater commitment, especially in the areas that are more complicated, in terms of Gemara that doesn't seem halach l'maisa, or limud bi'in that a person's not used to that's very complicated? How can you still feel that same simcha and fulfillment in doing something that either doesn't feel nogea or feels very complicated?
Okay. How does a person achieve simcha in Torah? So, I think maybe we have to bust a few myths about Simchas HaTorah. You know, because we hear stories about a gadol, and his whole day he's learning be'iyon, and he's just like floating in the clouds. It's not always going to feel like that. You know, there's in Kabbalistic literature, there's something called Machon de Gadlus and Machon de Katnas. Basically, that means there are good days and there are bad days. Some days you're really going to be enjoying the learning, and you're going to be finding fulfillment in it, and you're going to feel happiness from it. And other days it's like, I don't know, it's not going. You know, you're not feeling it, and that's normal and that's healthy. That's life. There are a few ways to feel simcha in Torah. Firstly, even if when you go to yeshiva, the main siddharim, let's say, will be in-depth learning. So some people have a natural inclination for it. And if they do, and they like the complexity, and they like the confusion, and they like the profundity of it, it will be easier for them to feel simcha in that. But if somebody struggles with that, it's worthwhile to identify a chelek in Torah that you enjoy learning, and use that as, so to speak, a springboard to allow you to experience the simcha in Torah, and then that will spill over to other areas. So, for example, if you enjoy Rabbi Akiva Eiger and the Pnei Yeshua, great. And that could be very fulfilling, that could be very rewarding, even if it's not necessarily Nogea L'Maisa, even though it's not relevant to, you know, day-to-day practice. If that's not doing it for you, try to find some area of Torah, whatever it might be. Maybe it's Bekiyos, maybe it's Halacha, maybe it's Musar, maybe it's a different area that, you know, resonates with you, and that gives you a certain simcha, and that could spill over to other areas as well. But there is an important element of Simchas HaTorah that comes from working hard, which means like this. The real joy from learning comes when you start sweating, when you really put in real effort to try to understand. And that means at first it might be very confusing and maybe very difficult, and you might not understand it. Let me tell you a few things from limited experience. Sometimes I remember this, and I still have this. When you learn, so sometimes people learn a Gemara, they have absolutely no idea what they're talking. Forget about feeling joy. I don't even know what in the world. I don't know what it is. What is this? Don't expect to understand something the first time. That's like rule number one is, the first time you learn something, don't have any expectations to actually understand it and to get some kind of, mystical joy from it. You don't even know what it's saying. The Gemara in Eruvin says, until you learn something 4 times, sometimes the person says, I don't know, I don't have a head for Gemara. I learned it, I don't understand. According to the Gemara in Eruvin, until you learn something 4 times, you didn't even learn it yet. You didn't even learn it yet. The Stipler writes, sometimes people feel the Gemara is confusing. Learn it 4 times, and then you can make an assessment. You can't assess if something's confusing if you didn't learn it. Imagine a guy, he says, this Masechta is very, very hard. Well, did you open it? Oh no, I didn't open it, but I find it very difficult. Well, first try to learn it, then you could make an assessment whether it's difficult. So just because you see the Gemara once, you see it twice, you see it 3 times, you didn't learn it yet. How could you assess whether the Gemara is easy or hard? Something magical happens when you review something again and again. Whatever, the first time, the second time, it's a different world. It's like, it's panim chadashos. So, and then, when you really apply yourself to learn something, and then you have a breakthrough, and you sweat, we live in a very quick fix generation. There's something called, that somebody told me there's something called that if you're hungry and you want something from a certain pizza store, you could press a button. Is it true they have something like this? And they'll deliver it to you? They have something like this? Really? Like, let's say I live in the 510, there are 10 pizza stores, and I like pizza store, not Ruvain, I like pizza store Zavulan. I could press a button, and they'll deliver it to me. But when I was a kid, I know, I'm joking, right? Uber Eats. When I was a kid, if you wanted pizza, you had to leave your house, walk to the pizza store, and get it. And if it was 20 minutes away, you would have to walk 20 minutes away, and that's what we did. I remember walking, 20 minutes. Nowadays, who in the right mind would do it? You just sit back, you press a button, and whatever you want is brought to you. So people are not used to working. People are not used to sweating. So they want to apply that to the Gemara. Okay, I'm learning the Gemara. What does this mean? I don't understand. Okay, forget it. Okay, where's the art scroll? Bring me the art scroll. Oh, I don't understand the art scroll? No, this Gemara is not. I have nothing against the art scroll. I'm just saying we're very used to getting quick answers. But in order to get joy, in order to get happiness, you need hard work. And I'll give you one example. The Beis HaMikdash, who's going to build the Beis HaMikdash? Is it coming down from Shemayim, or are we going to build it? It's a big contradiction. Machlokes, different opinions. What? Sukkah, Arba Charoshim.
Sorry.
Yeah. There are 2 Gemaras. Very good. Rashi in Sukkah Mem Aleph says it's going to come down from Hashemayim. Right? Tosfos agrees with Rashi. The Aruch LaNer asks from Sukkah Nun Aleph or Nun Beis, where the Gemara says that Mashiach is a carpenter. What does he have to be a carpenter for if it's going to come down in Hashemayim? So there's a stira. Who builds it? So one answer is Aruch LaNer says we're going to build the physical Beis HaMikdash and Hashem's going to send down the spiritual Beis HaMikdash. One answer, Rabbi Shua Leib Diskin says, Hashem's going to bring it down from Shemayim, but we're going to build the doors, and whoever builds the doors is like he built the whole building based on a Gemara Bava Basra. The doors are the ikar thing. Says Rabbi Shua Leib Diskin, listen to this. V'hareinu b'vinyanai, show us the building coming down from Shemayim. V'samchenu, make us rejoice b'sikunai, when we affix the doors. Think about it. That means we're not going to rejoice when Hashem shows it to us. When something just comes down from Shemayim, you're not going to rejoice. When you just learn and you have a quick answer and you just figure it out right away, so you're not getting any happiness. The happiness comes from amelos. So you got to get ready. If you have a Gemara and you don't understand it at first, you ask someone, you sit down, you read it again, you try one more time. Simcha in learning, a lot of it comes from hard work. Don't be afraid to work. Yeah.
So you said when the people came to build the Mishkan, like they wouldn't know how to do it. Isn't there a pasuk that says Hashem gave the tzal ruach u'chachma and bina? So
it says va'amale oisai Ruach Elokim, right? Hashem filled B'Tzalel with a certain spirit. But still, it also says that to construct the individual kelim, their heart had to carry them to, so to speak, summon forth from their hearts abilities that they didn't even know they had. Yeah. You tell me the.
I think a lot of you guys wanted to buy someone for the start.
Okay.
How can I go about?
Okay.